Neil from Essex here to talk to you today about one thing that I see on the internet that annoys me, as if there's only one thing, right? Today we're going to talk about some advice that I often see online, on Facebook, or even in the comments of our own YouTube videos, encouraging people to buy one step larger than what they necessarily think they need. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here today, some of the pros and cons about making that decision. Should you really buy up? Or should you kind of look for that sweet spot that is the right place to be? So join me a little bit here today. We're going to discuss this commonly given advice.
Essex, a helping hand with your land.
So if I sum up the context in which I usually see this advice to go buy one step larger than what you think you need, it usually is given from one of three different perspectives. And the first perspective is to future-proof your machine, right? You're making this investment in a piece of equipment that our hope and yours is that this machine is going to last you for many decades to come. And with that thought in mind, you might not be thinking about all the future applications for this machine, the different ways that you might use it. So if you want to anticipate some future needs, going and buying that one step larger will future-proof you for those unknown tasks that you may not have today. And that probably has some merit. The next reason that probably has some merit is for a little bit of extra capacity, right? If you look at the chores that you're thinking of buying this machine for, you might be looking at a loader and saying, I need to lift 1,000 pounds, but sometime in the future, that opportunity might come along where 1,200 or 1,500 is going to be necessary. And so taking that next step up to the next larger machine, again, is future-proofing you for that unknown application, but in the context of capacity, right? Where it just might take a little bit more machine to get the job done. And the last example that I see is often versatility, right? That you have a particular job that needs to be done and you're gonna need XYZ implement, and other tractors just can't run this implement correctly, and you need to have a big, heavy machine in order to get this job done. So buying that one size larger is gonna give you a more versatile tractor. So while these things are mostly true, correct, in a lot of the sense, I think if you go through and we work through these different bullet points, we'll kind of see that there's a negative side to a lot of these things as well. And the first of those is going to be most notably expense, right? As you buy bigger and larger equipment, bigger and larger implements, the cost of these things tends to go up. Simply going through and taking these two examples right here and moving from a tractor like an L3902 and taking one step larger up into the Grand L series can cost you several thousand more dollars as you go up to larger and more deluxe equipment that may not necessarily be required for the applications that you have. Now, while the cost of your machine is obviously going to be higher as well, another cost consideration to keep in mind is fuel. Your operating costs of a larger piece of equipment are generally going to be higher all around. If you take this tractor right here, this L3902, this machine is sold in 25, 33, or 39 horsepower. And if your application doesn't call for all the horsepower that's available in this size tractor, having an oversized engine is just going to cause you to burn more fuel over the life of the machine, not only in having a larger upfront cost for the unit, but also higher operating costs as well. The next con about going with a tractor that is bigger is also maneuverability concerns, right? Oftentimes people will look at a tractor like this BX series machine here and say that, you know, the machine is just not big enough. It can't do real work. It's not an actual tractor. It should be bigger. And great, there's probably some truth to that. Bigger machines can do bigger things, but bigger machines also aren't nearly as maneuverable. And this is something that I've seen a lot on my own property. I typically keep an LX series machine in my backyard, but I've taken home some larger, double the size MX series tractors before, and it becomes very clear to me very quickly how difficult it can be to get that machine around my property because of its larger size. Bigger turning radiuses, larger back ends, it makes a tractor a lot harder to get around. You also have storage space constraints, right? Now that bigger machine is going to take up more room in your garage. And as you're out driving around your property, you're also going to notice that bigger, heavier machines will do more damage to your turf. I notice on tractors when I start to get into 5,000 to 6,000 pounds worth of equipment that I start leaving ruts just driving straight back and forth across my lawn as that dirt is compacted as I drive across it. So keep that in mind. There's some space constraints as these machines get bigger that you're going to want to keep in mind. I've seen a lot of examples where buy bigger advice or buy more heavy duty advice is applied to implements. And if we take things like, say, this snowblower, and we buy something that's a little bit bigger, a little bit larger than what our tractor might really be intended for, we start to have some concerns, right? And maybe not enough horsepower in order to run the implement properly, move that snow out of the way, something that sticks out way beyond your tires and you're now catching the edges on as you're driving around because it is so large. Or if we take things like grapples, right? We buy a grapple out of a construction series machine that's intended for a skid loader and we put it on the front of a small tractor. We now have an implement that weighs so much that your tractor can't work it effectively, right? It's too heavy to allow that loader to be able to work and manipulate that implement correctly. So we always want to be looking at performance matching our implements to our tractor, not just buying bigger. So with those things said, obviously, I feel there's a better way here, right? The reason why this advice I feel is not good advice is because oftentimes we see it leading to what is the wrong purchase, right? This is a complex industry, and if you're trying to do your shopping purely on the internet or by gleaning information from Facebook groups and stuff, it is really hard to be able to understand all the variety of implements, the attachments, the manufacturers. Goodness, the amount of variety of stuff that you'll find here around Messick's itself is just mind-numbing. And you may not realize the amount of training and education that all of us go through to be able to understand actually how to put a lot of this stuff to use correctly. So while I'm a big proponent of online shopping, you can learn a lot. I've made 800 YouTube videos to help people understand this business and the attachments and the equipment. You can't substitute a good salesperson actually walking you through the buying process, understanding what your application is, and between the two of you, right? This is a cooperative effort, not a salesman shoving a machine down your throat because they're gonna make the bucks. Actually going through and sizing something to your operation correctly, right? Maybe you're a commercial contractor and a lot of these things matter and we gotta have the productivity and by and large helps us bill. You've got a different set of constraints than somebody that might be picking up a tractor for their 1 acre property for the very first time and might be receiving some bad information online. So if we can help you through the buying process for any kind of parts or service or equipment needs that you might have, give us a call here at Messick's. We're available at 800-222-3373 or online at messicks.com.